implementation guide is more straightforward, and just think of it as a step-by-step guide for planning and implementing a process, program, or system. And we'd want it to be detailed enough that somebody could take it and really be able to implement it as intended. And so that's a great option when there aren't multiple change ideas to choose from, and you really believe you've got a single promising set of practice or practices to share. And so an example of that might be, and I could be wrong, and so Liz, correct me, might be the work group that's working on planning and implementing a Chiba-like experience. That's more likely going to be an implementation guide. But Liz, is that right?
We have chatted about it, although we have not made a formal decision, and my gut is saying yes, and our work group will decide on that in the next week or so.
Great, and yes, each work group could decide. I think you can make an argument almost for either one. We will have templates for both, and again, you'll be able to customize at least parts of the templates while giving us a standard look and feel for all of the work. And next slide, please. Okay, so wanted to propose some norms. And of course, we'll always have our touchstones for collaboration. And in addition to those, here's what we're suggesting. Shared decision-making and accountability within that work group. That means you do have a topic area, and I think everybody's sort of aware of their general topic, and maybe a few parameters, but it really is up for that work group to decide what you do and how. So shared decision-making and accountability, you all are truly co-designing that. You'll have regular check-ins on workload and what is possible. And I think all of us have limited time on this, and so we're really asking that you prioritize a limited set of topics within your broad topic areas, and really having strong products for those limited topic areas, rather than trying to go too broad and being partially done covering many topics. So as an example, we had a pre-meeting for the improvement science and measurement work group yesterday, and there are so many things that you could cover in that. And we'll likely really cover 3 buckets that we think are most critical and that respond to some of the challenges that were identified through the TOAST process. And so again, yes, don't try to feel you have to do every possible thing for that topic area. They're very broad. Really think through some really strong and highest leverage topic areas to go deep on. And then we'd love you to use live stories, journey maps, TOAST products, and other existing materials where relevant. I will say I've started reading all of the live stories, and I know Sarah has read them all. They offer such rich material and examples, and I think the same with journey maps and TOAST products. Often will tell you sort of where there are challenges that we could really address. What were sort of the barriers and what were some of the things that facilitate progress, and you could use those to build your products. And then we also ask that you look for synergy with other work groups. We know that we do have a group that's working really on community transformation and is thinking of all the community of solution skills and community transformation map. And we know that part of the power of these skills is their use together. And so, it may end up that we're finding synergies and you'll just provide a link to a piece of another work group's work, or, we'll have regular check-ins so that we can sort of identify those. And then also would love you to be thinking about which of these things could be potential new models for CHI. So our Community Health Accelerators Initiative, our online training and support system. And we may or may not be able to record new CHI modules during this period, but we may be able to get the initial slides and materials and maybe even a script and then record them this fall. So yes, be actively thinking what would make a good CHI module, and you know, as you do that, sort of think through how that might work. And then we've got a suggestion of using future biweekly Wednesday meetings for the work group leads and others who are interested to provide updates and facilitate synergy. And then as part of the work, your work group will come up with your own norms for how you'll do your work together.
Thanks, Paul. I'm seeing a few questions coming in the chat that I'm going to read aloud as well. So one is from Shoma, and it asks, will our work groups be choosing who the audience is for their guides or papers? Will that be explicit, or is this already decided?
That is a great question, and it's a yes, sometimes. So for some of the things, like the evaluations team's articles, the audience is, it's going to peer-reviewed journals. I know for the people with lived experience, there are two audiences. One, people with lived experience, and then the community, the organizations and communities that work with them. And so that one has two audiences. But that is a great question. Some of the work groups that hasn't been decided on yet, and will be something that they'll be zeroing in on before May 31st.
Thanks, Paul.
I was just chatting that in. I apologize for the delay. The next question I see. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I do see. Yeah, that cheat feature in Word is really good. There also used to be, like, and it may still exist, like when I was in grad school, well, a long time ago, Son of Citation, something like that. But yeah, we can try to make doing it in the format really easy. So we can maybe get back to you on that very quickly.
And then Amy also asked, will there be a master list in quotations? So if there are similar topics that we are building the topics together.
Yeah, so we do have the master list of work groups, and then by May 31st, we're asking to have sort of an outline of sort of the specific topics within that broader topic area that you'll cover. And so I think we can and will share that with everyone, because that will really promote some synergies.
That's all I'm seeing in the chat right now for questions. Not sure if others have any questions they want to speak aloud.
Great question from Jenny. And I'm going to pass it to Liz and or Chelsea to answer. What's the leadership structure of the groups?
I'm happy to answer that if helpful. So Jenny, it will really be up to the work group. And you'll likely hear us kind of say that a lot, but we have individuals who have volunteered for specific roles, and we also have different time constraints for different individuals within each group. But the way that you all decide to do work will be very dependent on what you hope to make and also kind of what ideas you hope to leverage. And we feel it's important to give you all the flexibility to decide your structure in a way that best helps you achieve that overall goal. So it's kind of like a both and. We have individuals who have signed up, and it'll be up to the work group to decide really how those roles function and manifest day to day. And Liz, do you have anything to add to that?
That was great, Chelsea. And just adding that in each of the initial work group calls, we've shared sort of the various components of what the work group, like the various roles that Chelsea shared, and those are definitely malleable, so you can decide together who is doing what.
We have
Paul,
another great question. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that you mentioned in the chat that we are project managers, and so each work group has a project manager that can help facilitate that process if work groups need assistance as well. And we're happy to help kind of structure if work groups kind of reach a misunderstanding or are unsure how they would like to be structured.
Great, and then we've got a question about where do we find these wonderful toast products? I added wonderful, but they are wonderful. So we do have a folder, and what I think maybe we can do, and I'm happy to do this, is we'll start a folder within this folder with the toast products. And the areas of the toast product, there's one on improvement, science and measurement, one on the community of solution skills and community transformation map, one that is a combined people with lived experience addressing race, racism, and equity, and one that was on spread and scale up. So we will share those with you, steps 1 and 2, which are completed. And then I'm wondering, we have some members of the evaluation team on. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit, Brittany or I think I saw Jonathan, about step 3 and when that information might be available for folks.
Yeah, this is Brittany. So just, I guess, an update on where things are in the TOAST process right now is that each of the subgroups is integrating the themes and data from each community into a template by the 20th. So that's our timeline for the next step. And then from there, those that are working on the meta-ethnography process will start to develop some coding. We have a meeting on, that's the 20th, so we have a meeting on the 22nd where we will go through the first stab at sort of looking at that coding process with a few communities. And I think the hope is that by the end of the month, we would have that data complete. I think that Kristen might have a clearer sense of the timeline, but that's what I can share right now.
Great. And we also had a question about whether we can access the journey maps. And yes, as a follow-up, I know that Sarah actually put together a handy spreadsheet that has links to the journey maps and the live stories. So we can put that in a folder. I'm wondering, Liz and Chelsea, if we have a folder like that's background material and we can include TOAST and journey maps and live stories and something like that.
That makes sense to me. Great, I'm passing it off to Chelsea to facilitate any announcements.
Sure. And I know that Holly has an announcement. Holly, would you like to take the stage?
Hello, thanks. So this is, this is Holly from South Carolina. I want to invite everyone June 11th and 12th to Columbia, South Carolina. We're having a 2-day training on the technology of participation methods. Candace and Melvin will be there, and we'd love some other folks to join us. We're going to learn how to have a focused conversation, how to facilitate consensus workshop, and how to do action planning. So this is supported by the Institute of Cultural Affairs. These methods have been used all over the world. This training is very different than some of the other trainings because at this training, guys, you will actually facilitate an action planning workshop. You'll facilitate, you'll have practice with all of it. And it's myself and Nancy Jackson, who's one of my mentors and a wonderful facilitator. So if you're interested, just shoot me an email and it's a wonderful training. So we're going to have community members all the way from New York City, South Carolina, North Carolina, and we'd love for you to join us. I only have 11 spots left, and I would love to fill this up this week. So please join. Thanks.
And if folks are interested, how do they just email you?
I will send a link right now with all the information.
All right. I love that. Great.
Thank you so much, Lily. I've also noticed as another announcement that it is Candace's birthday. Happy birthday, Candace. Are there any other announcements or celebrations that people would like to mention?
This is Paul. I have a celebration. I think probably everyone knows, but just in case, Amy Budnick did receive her doctorate this spring, and our Brittany from the evaluation team also is now officially a PhD. So I wanted to congratulate them both.
Congratulations, Amy and Brittany. This is such an exciting time for everyone who's a part of this work. Are there any other announcements, celebrations? Thank you, Holly, for putting in the link to your training as well. I can see the chat is alive with celebration. Great. Well, feel free to let us know if there are any other announcements that individuals have for the group as this work continues.
Thank you, Chelsea. I will quickly review some of our next steps that we've been capturing throughout the call. So a couple of things that the operations team seated here at IHI will take on is to put together a background folder where the TOAST information, live stories, and journey maps will all live, so that work groups can pull that from the Google folder. I also, we're going to also look into potentially finding a way to make the APA citations easier in our templates. And it sounded to me like each of the work groups would identify the best way to do that, recognizing time limitations. And I'm scrolling through to see if there are any others that I might have missed, and also welcome any additions that folks have as well.
So this is Laura. Hey, everybody.
Hi, Laura.
So, hi. So I'm trying to absorb, and you know, sometimes my brain goes a little slowly. And I'll look at the slide deck, but if you were to, off the top of your head, Liz or whomever, if like there's 3 things that you really want us to walk away from this call, knowing and being in action about, what would those 3 things be? And I promise I'll look through the slide deck really carefully, but what's really pressing based on your perspective?
That's a good question. I can share one thing, and then I also encourage others to share as well, because my thing might be different. I think for me, something really important is that we're really trying to transition to like a work group driven model of more distributed leadership. So really acknowledging that work groups can decide on the scope of what they're working on and determine amongst themselves what they feel like they can reasonably finish by July 31st. I am complete.
Super helpful. That was super helpful.
Darn, Liz, that was mine, but I'll come up with another one. And I would say build off existing things. So whether that's live stories, journey maps, Toast, anything that you all have done wherever possible.
And I would say both Paul and Liz's comments, and also to really use each other as resources and collaborate in doing this work to the best of your ability. I think everyone has learned a lot over these last few years, and it's really important to lean on each other as well, even though we are separated into work groups, to really move this work forward.
And Holly made 3 that I really like that she chatted in.
Thank you to each and all of you. That was really helpful. I feel less overwhelmed.
Thanks, Laura.
This is
Speaking of
Holly.
overwhelmed, oh, go ahead.
So sometimes so I just want to be clear, like July 31st is a hard deadline. So what if our work groups like moving, there's no possibility for an extension, right? So we need to like really, our end date 7/31, let's really back it up, because I just want to be clear on that as a leader of a work group, because extensions are not a possibility. Is that correct?
And
like
I can
answer.
Yeah, I can answer that one. Yes, we shouldn't be asking for extensions.
Okay.
Which does not mean that you could never add to these products again, but that
Right. It's just version 1.
Exactly. So I think of almost all of these as living documents that we can continue adding on, but like sort of the sections that are in there, feel reasonably complete for now. And one of the reasons why we really can't do an extension is our new grant starting August 1st can't begin until we've spent down all of these funds and completed our deliverables. And so that's why that's really important. And so yeah, that's why we think each work group is really going to decide the scope of work that sounds reasonable, and you're going to have a chance midway through to really go back and revise that scope upward or downward if needed, based on where you are in June. And we really are thinking like, what you do really well, and all of these topics are so broad. Don't try to do everything, because none of us have the time needed to do all of that justice. And if we really prioritize, we can build some awesome products for the topic areas that are highest leverage.
Got it. Well, I want August 1st to get here, so I got it. No, we can't continue without this. Thank you.
One other piece that's kind of on my mind as to why the July 31st deadline is so important as well is we are really creating resources for others to create similar changes within their different communities across the nation and world. So I think that this deadline will also give us enough time to translate the work that's been done here so successfully to other places. So it is the grant deadline, and also we'll be really using this to inform the next phase of our work.
Yeah, you're powering so much of what we'll be doing come August. So that's a great point, Chelsea. I did want to say something about being overwhelmed and spaciousness. We are making a conscious decision that spaciousness needs to be one of our ways of being and doing. And that is why we're really leaving it up to the work groups to do a scope of work. We know that you are all committed, so we do not fear that you're going to say, we'll do a one-word document. And so we really invite you, based on the hours that you have, what seems reasonable, and then going back in mid-June to revise up or down or make changes to the work plan to make sure that, yes, we're making a difference, and that we are modeling the skills that we think, that we know are needed in this field. Ooh, Amy's got a question. What is the plan for disseminating these materials for spread and scale? So that is a great question, and it depends on the product. A few of the products that the evaluation team are taking the lead on are really for sort of peer-reviewed journals. Other things are for practitioners and TA providers and for us. And I'm hoping a lot of this will become CHI modules that can go to any person, individual, community, organization, anywhere, at any stage of readiness. And I think also your work group in sort of determining your audiences can further, I think, target. You know, I think one of the things for some of the work groups is like, is it for TA providers and practitioners? Is it for both? Is it for one? And you know, I think, you know, being clear on your audience is really important, and feel free to run things by us if you're not sure or just want us to weigh in. But you know, the dissemination will really be based on who the audience is. So once again, a lot of it is in the hands of the work group to really figure out what would be best.
Well, that was somewhat unintentional, but I'm now sharing my screen and showing the Change Library, which
I thought it was
Shomar referred to.
intentional.
I was going to click on it to pull it into another tab, and here we are.
Yeah, I think since you all saw IMAP way back in the old days, we took a lot of your feedback, and for especially things like implementation guides, it has a really nice format where it really structures the kinds of things that other implementers find useful. But you can also submit things like stories or a combination of video and other things. So Live Stories is built into it. So you can really be creative in how you use this to communicate an implementation guide or change package. And then when you publish it here or put it here for publication, one of the nice things is then it's searchable. It can be one of the vehicles for spread and scale that we use, if you want to.
Yeah, I think, no, I think almost all other than the peer-reviewed journal articles will make it here in some form or another. I guess one thing that we weren't explicit about, but that we could be a little more, is that yes, of course, there needs to be some writing in this, but we also encourage video and multimedia. So probably the final product probably can't be an interpretive dance, but we really do want you to use all the mediums at your disposal in developing these. So feel free to be creative.
I also see a question from Bernice asking whether global case examples can be provided for local to global impact.
And so the answer is yes. If there are strong global case studies that you think would be useful, that is fine to bring those in. And I think we will now have a movement for all of our products to be interpretive dances.
In general, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation really looks for global cases that have been applied here. So that's just something to know, because they are a national funder, but are really interested in the other way, the U.S. learning from global examples.
So this is Holly. I guess I have a question. We'll get to this, but a lot of, like, I understand we're going to cite APA style, and I'm used to that. But like some of the citations or attributions are not like peer-reviewed journals or books. It could be like interviews with like Melvin Jackson, or this toolkit that a coalition developed, right? So could we have or would you be able to give, I guess I just need some examples. I know how to cite peer review, but the other way, just because I think I'm going to have probably, in my two groups have more of that than the peer-reviewed citations.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, go ahead, Paul.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to share, which might have been what you were going to share as well, that for the synthesis reports we put together and we used the APA citations, we did also cite things similar to what you're sharing, Holly, and I think the link I shared might have been broken, so I'm happy to send that out again in the notes from this meeting as an example to refer.
Yeah, or Liz, if it could go in that folder, because I'm notorious. I see stuff in these links. If it's in that shared folder, I'll be able to find it again. So
okay.
That'd be the great place for me to be able to reference it.
Great.
Liz,
And
I don't know.
Jonathan pulled what I was going to pull. So yeah, there is some formatting guides for less formal but equally important citations that we can use. And sorry, Shoma.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, if you use the one that's in Word, and I wonder if there's like a way to just do like a 2-minute show of that, you can actually say, this is a journal article, this is a website, this is a book, this is a newspaper. You can just say what kind it is, and it just asks you, do we have an author? Is there a web link? It just gives you a bunch of fields, and then you just say, I want this format. You can say it's APA, and it organizes all of it into that format. So what's nice is you just put in the information you have, and it even stars recommended information to put in for each kind of thing it is. So it gives you a lot of, you just have to put in the information, and then it organizes it for you.
Okay, thank you. I've never used the Word feature. I use a different program, so I want to use my Word.
I'm not advocating for it. There may be others that.
There's that.
Yeah.
There is that. I'll put in one that I use, and again, there are others.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's kind of at the end. I was just curious.
No, it's at the beginning, because if you don't have everyone decide, it's a disaster. So you're right to bring it up.
That's true. So people need to tell it now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and also sort of as you're polling them, it's much easier to take the 30 seconds than the 5 minutes trying to remember where it was from at the end of the process.
Okay.
Laura also asked a question. Oops, gosh. Sorry, I clicked on it again. Laura also asked a question about who might be responsible for distributing the leadership in each of the work groups. I responded that my gut is that it would be the work group leads, and I also want to hear others' thoughts as well.
I'd also like to leverage Bernice's comment. Bernice, please feel free to speak to this, but I know for the people with lived experience group, we are following a co-leadership model that Bernice and Shemeka and Yolanda are kind of taking charge on, where co-design is a part of the creation process. And Bernice, please feel free to say more to that. I know I kind of said your comment as well. If you have anything else to add.
Hi, I just unmuted myself. You said it beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernice.
So Bernice, can you tell me, I'm really excited about that. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that really looks like? Because that might benefit all of the work groups.
Sure, sure. So at the start of our work group, we had a pre-work group meeting, and we all agreed that we wanted to take a participatory approach to the process where there weren't any hierarchies or power dynamics blocking the flow of ideas. Part of it was because different There are three of us in the group, along with the manager, program manager, and we wanted to ensure that no one felt stifled since each person joined the 100M initiative at different points. And so we wanted to ensure that everyone had an equal say based on their expertise. So as part of the co-leadership model, we are utilizing Google Docs as a firm base to ensure that everyone's input is taken into account. And then also on our calls, we're ensuring that there isn't any sort of dominance in the conversation, but everyone has an equal say as far as proceeding with next steps. And in terms of how we interact with the other larger work groups, ensuring that there is a participatory approach to learn from everyone's experience, because we want to model in our, at the micro level, what the macro level of engaging people with lived experience can look like. So we want to model that in terms of how we're engaging with one another through a co-leadership process. I hope that makes sense, or if I need to offer any clarification, I'm happy to.
So that was really helpful. And I noticed that Jenny Hudson from West Virginia put in the chat, she wants to know more about what does that co-design really look like based on what you know now.
So right now, in terms of co-design, we have started to just free flow our thoughts on Google Docs and offer resources based on our respective lived experiences, because each of the co-leaders are bringing in different experiences from different walks of life. And so we want to make sure that everyone's input is taken into account in the co-design, while also recognizing some of the material that has been developed before, so that we can take that into account and see how we can build upon that, so that we're not reinventing the wheel. So pretty much it's a process of taking into account what's been done before and seeing areas where there are significant gaps where we can improve upon based on our lived experience, and really discussing areas based on what's there in the evidence-based literature, but also what's lacking as far as engaging people with lived experiences. So it's been an awesome process thus far. We've had a few meetings, and so it's a growing process in terms of learning how we should engage given the different group dynamics. And so part of our processes is even documenting what we're going through at a micro level in terms of engagement, because it's sort of a similar mirror of what happens when engaging people with lived experiences at the macro level, from an organizational level, and then also at an individual level. So we're trying to document everything.
Thank you. For Bernice, but I think it might also be interesting if other groups decide to use a similar model. And if you all also write up on your experience of that model, it might be interesting for the lived experience group to read as well. I am complete.
Thank you. That would be awesome. We would love to have that as a resource. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions, and Bernice for your response. That's really exciting. And it's definitely getting the wheels moving in my brain on how I can better support that process as well. We do have we do have more time for questions, so I'm happy to stay on the line, and I imagine others are as well. And I also want to provide space for folks if they would like to have some extra time back into their day also. And as I was saying, oh, go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say, and for all but the smallest group, there are individual kickoff calls, and so you'll really be going from this is theory to actual practice very quickly in those. And some of you have already held your your individual work group kickoff calls.
Great. And Fran wrote, what is the vision for the whole summary on August 1st? Fran, I'm wondering if you could speak more to that, because I'm not sure if I understand.
Yeah, what do you mean by
Fran.
full summary, I guess? I know what August 1st means.
I'm thinking of, pulling it all together. What does it look like when it's all together? And then what is the highest and best next use, I guess? What are communities around the country going to be able to grab from this and go? I guess that's the question. What's the vision, and then where from here?
So on or by May 31st, you all will have gotten in deeper on your topic areas and will be telling us what topics you'll be covering and who your audiences are, and what things might make good CHI modules and things like that. So all of that to say, Fran, our sort of the non-specific vision is that what we all create together is going to power the next phase of the movement, and the specifics are to be really determined by all of us. And yes, I think the sum will be more than the sum of the parts, and it's too early to say how all of them will be used together in some cases, separately in others. But what we're really doing, as we said, is co-design and co-development. So you all will have a say. Is that enough of an answer for you for now?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I would love to. I just put in motivate the elephant. Just this is a really big a big deal, and it can really be powerful for a lot of communities across the country and across the world to learn from what we've learned and really pull it together. So I was thinking of after that, what's when we're all done, what happens next?
Yeah, so everything that all those topic areas were chosen because they do something that is going to help us in the next phase. So none of them were chosen just randomly or by accident. We've either got something that we want to scale up, or or we've got action communities in mind, or we want to be able to scale up a bright spot. So all of it will be put to service in the movement and otherwise. And I think we'll be figuring out the broader use over time. So I don't think we'll even have a final answer to that by August 1st. But I will say these are not just like synthesis reports that are submitted to Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and then that's done. They will all be put to use.
Great. Fran, thank you very much for your question. Sorry. I'm looking right now at a couple of questions that have floated in. One from Bernice asking about follow-up around documenting process to share with the people of the lived experience group, maybe creating a folder for folks to include their write-up for their process. I think my gut, Bernice, is that it would be helpful, I think, to hear from your work group, and it doesn't need to be on this call, but what is the best way for you all to receive that information if work groups do decide to do a write-up? I also see that Amy asked, wondering if we can create a virtual table of contents for the Google Drive. It's a great question. I'm not sure.
And I would say after May 31st, when we know more of the specifics, that would be easy enough for us to do. So I think we could just yet
Yeah.
I think we could.
And Paul, I would love your help on that as the
I'm good. I'm
master.
good. I'm good
I was
with
like, I don't
that.
know if I know how to do that, but I think I can do it. Let's see. How are we evaluating the co-design process for these groups? Seems like a great opportunity to collect data. That's a great question, Amy. Do you have any initial thoughts on that?
Oh, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jonathan. You're you sound like you're underwater.
Well, I am in a submarine right now, but so we actually are not each group is welcome to do whatever evaluation they want, at least from the evaluation team perspective. Like we're sort of closing the door on data collection for scale 2. So, I think it would be up to each work group to decide, going back to, sort of where we started with the conversation today, what their norms are and, how to go about, pulling in the voices that are needed for each thing that you're producing.
I mean, I guess I always look at it like from a 30,000-foot view. I feel like we're in a laboratory, somewhat of an experiment, and I would hate to have us go 3 months and say, oh, I really wish we documented or caught that. I saw Holly wrote in about plus delta. It just seems like if there's like 3 questions that we all ask at the end of each meeting, or if there's some way that we're capturing it as we're going on through the process in a consistent way, then we could collect some kind of information that could be really useful for later on. Just a thought, just enough data.
Great. I mean, we're all members of the work group, so I would love to hear. I'm seeing a lot of like affirmations and folks saying that they really like that idea, as well as the plus delta idea. Yeah, Bernice asked, do you have the 3 questions?
Laura B., what do we always talk about?
What do we always talk about?
What are our questions at the end of the caucus that we always talk about? What challenged you?
Yeah, I think it's like what challenges you or what challenged you. I'd have to look it up, but I'm not sure if they were the best fit for this, Amy.
I don't know. I think some of it's going to be, we'll have to see how the first call is. I just feel like there's always these amazing synergies and group dynamics that go on, and I notice it even within our groups here locally, that if there's a way to just capture it so that you don't forget, and if you have to do a higher level look at it, when you're coding, if you're looking at qualitative data, some of the themes have already happened and emerged that you're not trying to go backwards and remember.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Holly, I'm thinking about how we've used the plus delta and specific to the relationships process results.
That's just more than 3 questions. Yeah, so it's basically thinking about, I could pull it up.
Okay. Yeah, because I really like that tool, and it could be modified. Yeah, as needed.
Just grab. I'll be a minute.
Yeah. Great, and I see Becky chatted in. If there's a bi-monthly call of the work group leaders, could that be a decision point for that first call among that group? And I also shared that I was thinking something similar of maybe having, recognizing that the work groups themselves haven't had an opportunity to have this conversation necessarily. So wondering if maybe it makes sense to start there, and then in the next larger meeting, this could be one of the topics of conversation. Although I recognize that's in 2 weeks, and maybe that feels like it's too late in the process. Yes, Holly, you can. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
All right. So, oh goodness. Sorry, wrong document. Oh, some kind of stuff. Okay, so this is the debrief with discussion team, positive unexpected deltas. What are changes we need to consider based on some of the not there yet moments? Results, did you meet your aim? Process, review the process, how it was designed, managed, and implemented. So that would be good to find out, like, are we truly co-designing? It's the voice of lived experience here. And then relationships, what was the quality of the relationships? What was the level of trust, respect, and relationships between you and the target audience? So this is a little more than 3 questions, but it's good, and it you're kind of documenting at the end of each meeting this. And sometimes you have maybe, like in the beginning, we could be more process, but like, you know, if we're in our 6th work group meeting, maybe a lot more of our plus deltas are in the relationship and then in the results. I'm complete.
And I'm thinking for the results, I mean, we can, I don't know. I feel like it would be really, really, really helpful if all the work groups used it. Speaking, you know, Amy articulated sort of the why, I thought, really well. And I'm thinking for the results question, it could be, did you meet your objective of the meeting, Holly? If, you know, if we wanted to do it that way.
I think ours would be, did you meet your rational aims?
Yep.
Right? Or your goals or for the call or whatever. Yeah.
Because I just think specifically in our county, when we had our conversation with Pastor Norris when we were doing the CTM, Corey and I were rating ourselves as a 10, and he'd come back and say, no, you're really a 3. So my concern is that if we're truly trying to co-design and make sure there's equitable, you know, relationships and power that's happening, if we're not measuring that and we're reliant on people just saying this isn't equitable, I'm not so certain that we're going to get where we want to be.
Good calling.
And this is Paul. I'll just, I chatted in a resource that I love, and some of you know Reinventing Organizations and about Teal organizations. And I think, and I put in a link to a wiki, so it's free, on sort of like autonomous teams. And I think of sort of our work groups. Yes, you have your overall charge, and we do have that July 31st due date, and almost everything else is up to the team. And so this wiki, it starts with one article, but there's links to lots of ways and examples for how you might co-design, make decisions together, deal with conflict, almost anything else could happen.
Hi, it's Bernice. I wanted to lift up as an example what happened in our pre-work group meeting with the co-leaders as an example. So we had some sort of semi-structured agenda, but what ended up happening is at the beginning, everyone sort of shared their stories and expertise. And one of the co-leaders made a comment that sometimes in this process of relationship building, especially, that the agenda may change based on what the needs of those individuals on the call are. And it could be a healing process. It could be what's needed at that time to further promote the relationship. So part of our learning moment was really understanding the shift that may happen even on the calls to further accommodate what's needed in that moment in that space, and being flexible to accommodate that. And we also agreed that we will document that as part of the process. So that's one thing I wanted to raise to the group in terms of what happened on our last call, just in terms of co-design. There was an agenda set, but we did not get through all of the agenda because there were things that were lifted up on the call that was needed. And so perhaps for the other work groups, it may or may not occur in that same way, but we've decided as co-leaders to make sure that we're allowing some flexibility to enable that while still trying to stay on task with the deliverables and documenting that as part of the process for internal relationship building as a theory to practice.
Other questions, comments, either in that vein or another topic entirely? And I'll just say, we've assembled an incredible team with incredible and diverse expertise. And, that is why you all are here, and that is why you're working on those specific topic areas. And so I'm just really excited to see what you all come up with. And I know it is going to propel our work forward. So I thank you in advance. And, I've loved this conversation about really documenting our test of true sort of co-designed and shared decision making. So I love where that's going. I think that I'm not making a promise, but that may make it into a write-up of some sort as well. That could really be useful for our action communities, that are really going to be asked to sort of co-design and co-lead the work together. So I really see some promise in that. So that will not just come on our desks and be forgotten. I think we can make real use of that as well.
So I'm really excited about this call, and I thank you so much. I'm starting to understand more and more. I'm wondering, can we close the loop? And if not now, can we think about when we could close the loop about what Amy surfaced and the tool that Holly shared? I just think that this co-design, evaluating our distributed leadership and co-design, nothing fancy, would be a huge way for us to improve and a huge gift to others. But I feel like I'm not sure how we proceed, because it's obviously, I need guidance from someone.
Well, I'll make a suggestion. It's definitely not guidance. I think we could have another call either next Wednesday or the following Wednesday for anyone who wants to be a part of co-designing what our evaluation of co-design will look like, and then get that out to all of the teams by May 31st. I'm wondering if something like that sounds doable. Got a thumbs up from Laura. I'm happy to both schedule and send out a Zoom invite for the call. And, I think whoever can attend will, I think we trust that those who are there are going to come up with a great start, and we will tweak as we go along. So we know that not everyone will be able to make that. But if that sounds like a good idea, I will come up with maybe a doodle poll with a few potential times to see what sort of a time with the most people look like.
Thank you, Paul. I think that makes a lot of sense for process. And I also wonder, it seems like we have a lot of different, like a wealth of resources we can pull from for this. And so maybe as a next step, which I can include in the notes as well from this meeting, folks sort of bring those resources to that meeting to so that we can facilitate the discussion, decide where we want to go and move forward.
And I wonder, this would take so much time. Starting a folder called co-design materials, I mean, that would probably take years. But I bet we could get that out in the notes, and then we could ask people whether or not you can join or not. If you've got materials related to co-design, put them in that folder, and then the group can go over them in the meeting.
Works for me.
Great. And yeah, Amy, one of the things that I was thinking is when I put out the 3 or 4 times in Doodle, trying to look to make sure that there's at least one person from each work group. We know 100% participation is not possible, but that was one of the things I was going to look for.
Because again, I think valuing the skill set of everyone in the group, we don't need every person to record or, distribute. But if there's 1 or 2 people who are responsible for this tool, these questions, this information, that would be awesome.
Agreed. Yeah, this excites me.
Because I think a key piece to our spread and scale is to be also to share these new, it's not even a nuance, it's the way that we are.
Yeah.
And that's often hard to describe to people who haven't been embedded in what we are as a network. So if there's a way to try to do that, I think that would be great.
Yeah. And yeah, Shoma's, this really is what co-responsibility, co-ownership really is all about. So I think we have the opportunity to show the way. So, yeah. Great. So if there are other questions that come in, feel free to send them our way. If you think they're specific to your work group, I think that's the best place, because we want, whenever possible, for the work group to make decisions. If you do think it affects every work group, then it probably can go into a group. And we will likely actually put it back to the group to decide, unless it's very logistical, and which might. But yeah, we want to make decisions as a team.
Thank you all so much for your time and partnership, and for bringing up so much during this meeting. This has been really, really great. I think with that, we can end the call on time. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.